The views expressed on this episode of the Came to Believe Recovery podcast do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT, Take 12 Recovery Radio, or our affiliates. The opinions on this episode should not be taken as medical, psychological, or professional advice and are those of the host, co-host, and guests. KHLT and Take 12 Recovery Radio are not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship. Well, greetings, my friends. I am the Monty Man from Take 12 Recovery Radio, and this is the Came to Believe Recovery Podcast. And now, here are your Came to Believe Recovery podcasting broadcasters to launch us forth on this week's show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Came to Believe Recovery podcast. My name is Alicia, and I'm here, as like always, with Tom and Monty. Hi, guys.
Hello.
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 Hey, have I ever introduced you to...
A gnome?
No.
Christmas gnome?
This is Clifford, my big red cup. Get it?
That is a big cup.
That
I
is.
like it.
But you know the story of Clifford, right? Clifford the big red dog.
Yeah, I know of him.
Yeah. Well, this is his coffee cup.
Did you get it on Amazon, or was it a gift, or what?
I bought it on Amazon. That joke just didn't go anywhere this morning.
No, it did not. And I know the song, and I have some trivia around that song.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah.
If you're right.
So that's the song from Taxi.
Yes, it is.
Oh,
And that song, the tune was playing in the studio when they were doing like initial like pilot filming of it. They hadn't picked a song or something.
Oh, wow.
And it was something about Angela. Remember Angela was the woman?
Yes.
And I think, right? It was Angela but something came around that they named the song Angela's Song.
Oh, really? Okay.
And,
all right.
or it was Angela's song and she just happened to be Angela in it and they ended up keeping it. I just saw that was some crazy Facebook.
Oh, that's a trip.
Shows you I have too much time in my hand.
when I heard that song, all I pictured was a car driving over a bridge or something. Is that?
Oh, yeah, that's Taxi.
I saw that. But I didn't know
what's the bridge called? The Burroughs Bridge or something like that?
I don't know which one that was. Queensboro or it wasn't the Brooklyn Bridge, I don't think.
So it's the song is very much, it sounds very close to the theme song to Hill Street Blues.
It's
I
close.
was thinking that
Kind of sound, you know. But when I drove cab years ago, a bunch of us would get together, in the middle of our shift and go over to this one gal's house who drove cab too, and we'd watch an episode of Taxi and then get back and go back to work.
Funny.
Yeah.
I never watched those shows.
A lot of actors came out of that thing.
Yeah, I watched Hill Street Blues. That was a good one.
Yeah. Well, the guy that played the chief in that is one of us.
Yeah.
And he attended, at least years ago. I have a friend who sees him all the time. He attended the what do you call it? The musicians meetings, AA meetings,
Right.
Southern California. Yeah. So very cool. What's the topic, Alicia?
Low bottom versus high bottom when it comes to recovery.
Highs and lows. Do. But we got to do this first, I'm sure. Right? There it is.
You've got mail.
Mailbag.
There's mail in the mailbag, so open it now.
right now. All right, we have just one today, and it's not real long, but we have time because we only have one, so I'll just go ahead and read the whole thing. And it's by Old Faithful.
Gall.
Yeah, Gall, which I really appreciate him being an avid listener and writing in every week. It's entitled Expectations. He says, either God is or he isn't. Either we are going for God, abundant living, or we are going to our fear, which can lead us back to addiction. These are my expectations. Since I became a believer, I practice positive believing, John 10:10. The thief cometh not but for to steal, kill, and destroy. I have come that they may have and then Jesus, I have come that they may have life and have it more abundantly. This told me that I can have an abundant life, but be aware and vigilant of the thief. The thief, according to Gall, is fear, as much as believing is receiving. Fear is also believing. Whatever I believe will come to pass. This is not easy. I had to put all the negative out. It can take years of practice to ignore the false negatives around me, to keep away what is not God. When I was strong in my faith, the thief came in the form of alcohol. Then, when I was in the depth of my alcoholism, the thief came to steal my faith. Later, in an awakening, I discovered who the thief was. It was me, in the form of ego, selfish, self-pity, dishonest, full of fear, edging God out. So recently, again, life has been going really well. My faith is restored and bad things have disappeared. Why is this? Can the program of recovery bring me back to my original strength in the power of believing? Alicia answered this question by something she said last week in the show that gives me a good understanding of why life has gotten better. She mentioned that we don't have to have fear anymore as we are practicing and doing step 10 daily. Therefore, keeping fear, dishonesty, selfishness, and self-pity away means to keep the thief away. Therefore, every day learning leaning more towards God and an abundant life, and never leaning towards fear and the thief. My expectations are met. Thank you all for another inspirational podcast. Gall.
I don't even remember saying that. Doesn't even sound like me. I think I would say, yeah, we have fear. Do it anyways. No, I mean, we're going to have fear.
Sure. Well, I've always liked what is it, acronym? Is that what it is when a letter stands for something? Yeah. False evidence appearing real. I've always liked that. But here's the thing. Some fears, right,
are real.
Are
right?
Definitely real, and they're put in place to actually as a warning, right, to help us. You know what I'm saying? It's like when I'm driving and there's a real sharp curve coming up and there's a cliff there, I've got this caution thing that goes on inside of me, and I get it. I don't know if you could call it fear or just being attentive to what I'm doing, but for a second I realized that if I'm not steering this car right, I'm going to go off the edge.
Self-preservation.
Self-preservation, yeah. So some of
it's wired into our brains from nature. They say our brain will automatically react to certain things, cause our body to under certain. You'll flinch. You'll.
Yeah, if you're backpacking in the High Sierra and this has happened to me, and you come across a rattlesnake, and you see him before he sees you, I'm telling you, you react instinctively. Right,
but when we're talking about defects of character and that fear, we're not talking about that.
No,
we're talking about fear of people, fear of rejection, fear of abandonment.
And that is false evidence appearing real.
Yeah.
That is a lie being told about yourself.
But it might be true. But then that's where our character is built. I mean, we're going to have fear. We're going to have things happen to us, and then we have to grow through it.
Yeah, I had a guy when I was working at the Teen Challenge Center. He was brand new. He's there like a week. He goes, my girlfriend's going to leave me. I can't live without her, blah, 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 blah. I just know she's going to leave. She's not going to put up with this. She's done. And people were trying to comfort him. No, she's going to support you. No, she's already put herself on the visitation list. This is not going to happen. And so I told him, I said, well, wait, whoa. What if you're right?
Consequences.
What if she does? What are we
Yeah.
going to do with that? We got to make a plan here because there's a very good possibility you're correct.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little cautious when people say, oh, it's all going to work out in your favor.
Yeah,
Maybe
no.
not. You
No.
know? Yeah.
Think of the worst, and then, yes, think of, well, what if it is? What are you going to do?
Well, I mean, that's the worry thing, too, is I always say, well, you can worry about it, but worry is, it hasn't happened yet. So save that for after it happens. But you should plan and do counsel and do your best. If, like, I know there's two consequences. There's something I can do about it. I should do whatever I can to, address whatever potential consequence or whatever the situation. But then you got to let it go. I mean, easier said than done. But I've had many times I've said to people, worry about it when it happens. It hasn't happened yet. Or do something. Don't worry about it. But right now it's a waste of time to worry because you can't do anything about it anyway, whether it comes or doesn't. And it's like you say, well, what if that does happen? It might. What if it does? What are you going to do? But don't do it today. You don't have to yet, right? Because it's not till tomorrow or whenever.
You do what you can when you can, and what you can't. It's like that thing I said.
It's a serenity prayer.
Yeah, and it comes. The thing about the donkey poop. Remember that? How do you clean up a room full of donkey poop? One spoonful at a time.
Yeah.
You can only do what
Yum.
you can do. Well, my sponsor told me that. He goes, here, he says, you're sitting in the middle of a room of donkey poop because it's nice and warm and comfortable, and you're complaining that you're there. So where are we going to start?
Clean it up.
Here's a spoon.
Yeah.
We're going to start one. And it's like even like in work where things are overwhelming. It's like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get this all done? I used to come home from my job and tell Marcia, my boss is expecting this, and this. It's impossible. I can't get it all done. She goes, you do what you can do. And then you
One
leave it
thing
in
at a
God's hands.
time.
You just do what you can do. And that's that part of the serenity prayer, the things I can change. Okay, I'm going to do what I can do. God isn't going to render us white as snow without our cooperation. But there's a point where you've done everything that you can do with God's power. Now it's time to rest and trust.
Yes.
Da-da-da. Well, that's all we have for the mailbag. If you have a question, a comment, a disagreement, an opinion, or an idea, we'd love to hear from you. The email address is Monty, M-O-N-T-Y, at cametobelieverecovery.org. And it's coming up on the screen right about now. Let me write down the marker, 1320. People don't know what I'm talking about. You guys do. And there we go. So let's close the mailbag.
Thank you for your mail. It means so much. A little piece of you just waiting to clutch.
You got mail. All right, the topic is high bottom versus low bottom, or low bottom versus high bottom, highs and lows, and me's and mo's, and all that kind of stuff. Launch us fourth here, Alicia, on this topic.
Okay. Well, I wanted to talk about our personal experiences. I don't know if we want to start with that or not. And then just get, like, before we started going deeper into the definitions of high and low, emotional, physical bottom, mental, and that kind of stuff. And then I thought, too, I mean, do people really talk about that? I don't hear a lot of people talking about, I had a high bottom or a low bottom.
Oh,
Have
I
you
do.
guys?
Oh,
You
yeah.
do? Okay.
Yeah.
I have not.
It comes and goes. I've heard it in the rooms.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard it in therapy,
Okay.
in process groups, counseling groups, things like that.
Which makes me wonder, why do we need to clarify? Who cares?
Well, because
need help.
people think different. I've heard in meetings, well, I haven't had a low bottom like that you had, but what I did have was this. And it can make some people feel like they haven't, fought the battle as hard or been as bad. And there's definitely a
Spectrum.
spectrum that people see. Because I've had people say to me, I haven't done any of that stuff you did. I didn't have that kind of bottom. Mine was much higher. They used that word, high.
Yeah. I had high bottom, I believe, with
Traditional.
alcohol.
I mean, that's what we need to define is what is in the world of recovery when they use this word high bottom and low bottom, what are they talking about? What's a high bottom? It would
I have a
typically be one
definition
that.
here.
Oh yeah, let's hear that. I like that.
It says, in recovery language, high bottom and low bottom are ways of describing the point someone reaches before they decide to change or seek help for addiction. They don't measure how bad the addiction is, but rather how far someone lets consequences go before admitting they need help. The bottom is personal and relative. So what do you guys think about that?
I like that. I like that. I think, to be honest with you, I think we can help raise people's bottoms. I don't think a person has to go as far down as some people think they do.
I know. Hopefully, you're like, why?
Well,
why? Just stop now.
It's been a very popular thing. For a long time, people would say, "Well, they have to hit their bottom before they're going to get help. That guy is not going to get help until he hits his bottom, and it's got to be a real low bottom." And I'm like, "Does it?"
I know. I don't like that at all. I get it.
That's like saying, "I'm just going to sit back until he's overdosing, and then maybe he'll wake up." No, I think those of us. Here's the deal: those of us that have recovered, those of us who've had a spiritual awakening as a result of this work and the power of God in our lives, we have an obligation to step up to the plate and do our part in helping raise people's bottoms. They do not have to go down that far, whatever that means for a person. They don't have to lose their job. They don't have to alienate their children. It does not have to be that way in order to get sober, abstinent, and spiritually fit. They do not have to. I'm sorry.
Right. Well,
I don't believe that for a minute.
Yeah, common sense says, well, of course not. They don't have to. But I think, it is thrown around. I've heard that. I probably have said it. Well, they're just not ready yet. Well, what does that mean?
Well, okay, so think about this. People say, well, they're not gonna change until they're ready. So I'm friends with some pretty popular interventionists in this country. Ken Seeley's one of them. Ken Seeley had the TV show Intervention. He's a good friend of Take 12 Recovery Radio. And Ken also has Intervention 911. Matt Brown from Freedom Interventions is a good friend of mine. And they always say this, and I love it. People say, until they're ready, they're not going to get help. There are a lot of people that were not ready, and help came to them in the form of a strong arm, right? And maybe it was a nudge of a judge, maybe it was an intervention, whatever. They didn't want to get help, and guess what happened? They got help.
Yeah.
So you don't have to want it to get it. I'm sorry, you don't. God can intervene whether you want it or not.
They do have to accept it, even at that point. Even at the retreats, it's like it's step 2. You either accept it and make the decision in 3 or not. And we can't make them.
Right. Well, in the process somewhere, we hope that their focus changes and shifts, right? But to get to that point where we got their attention, they don't always have to want it. We can sometimes get their attention by getting their attention,
Right.
But those usually that's left to the professionals. There's people that try to do interventions on their family members because they feel like they're at their lowest bottom, and unless they do something, you're going to die, and they mess it up really, really, really bad. People shouldn't do that. Intervention on call that Matt Brown does, and people can call, and for an hour he'll give them. It's very inexpensive. He'll he'll tell them and give them some ideas, and they may not even need an intervention. It just depends on how they address the person as they're addressing their bottom, so to speak. Anyway,
Should we go into our personal, if we thought we were high or low, or what direction do we want to go in, Tom?
I like that. I mean, I would have been traditionally probably low bottom, but that whole wanting it or being forced into it, I think is right. I mean, I didn't wake up one morning and just out of nowhere, for no reason, just say, well, I'm ready. Right?
Yeah.
I didn't say that. But I was forced into a situation where, I was facing a turning point. I had to do something. I couldn't stop this. I don't know if I was ready, but I couldn't stop. It was that dilemma. You're standing at that corner. It's this way or that way, and this isn't working. And I maybe was more strong-armed than, I kind of had to surrender and not submit. I surrendered and said, I don't know if I'm ready, but I got to. I have to try. And then as I moved through the process, I don't know if there was ever a point where I said, it was a very interesting philosophical kind of position that you kind of scratched at there, Monty. Is anybody ever really ready, or are you really just acceptant of it when it comes because it's time? You choose. But was I ready? I guess somebody would say, you guess you were ready. Well, but I didn't think that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I didn't really think, okay, I'm ready now. I got to do something,
ready-
and I got to call. And I guess you
Yeah.
could call that ready, but I didn't use those words. But I
Ready
had
to be
drank.
done.
Yeah. I had drank for a year and snorted cocaine and lost everything. Jobs, everything, was divorced, money. I mean, it was a free-for-all. I was out of control. The whole alcohol and drugs controlled me. Everything I did was for the next high, the next party. And then at the end, it was a month of every day, around the clock, in a house. And I only left the house to go get more Coke. So, yeah, I think that was where I was probably near dying when I was kind of intervened on myself. So I guess that would be traditionally called a low bottom, right? I mean, I was right at the edge of dying, I think, if I had not done anything. And then I made a call that got me the answer. I certainly wasn't going to fight it anymore. Maybe that means ready. I finally admitted, yeah, I'm an alcoholic and my life is unmanageable and I have no power. And if that's the same as saying I'm ready, I think it's just, I don't want to get stuck on that, but it's very interesting, the whole I'm ready thing, right? So that's what happened to me. So I think I was low bottom, but that got me to the place where I had to surrender or I was going to be dead. That was going to be my consequence. So my bottom, the other end of mine was probably dying.
Monty, what about you?
So I was I had injected something into my body down on Santa Monica Boulevard in California, and somehow or another drove to Milwaukee, Oregon, which is right outside of Portland. 2 weeks. 2 weeks had gone by. People say you can't have a blackout on anything but alcohol. They're inexperienced. You can have a blackout on methamphetamine. To be honest with you, I'm not even sure that's what I put in my body. I was at that point in my bottom, if you will, or whatever, that I was just putting stuff in my body because, hey, whatever you got, I want. And I woke up 2 weeks later, and out of desperation, I made a phone call to a guy that I was hoping could help me, and he did. But the thing is, to be really honest, I'm going to say something now. It's not going to set well with people. I was a Bible-believing, born-again Christian in active addiction, and if I could have continued without consequences, I would have.
I wanted to. The only reason that I stopped is I ran out of money and I was backed in a corner. But if somebody had said, you can continue in this madness, I would have continued. I would have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And my desire to return to the Lord, it just wasn't there. But I was hopeless, I was helpless, and I was backed in a corner. And that came back after my head cleared. But my head was in such a crazy place. I had no more ability to want to serve God and change my life than turn myself into a rock. I just didn't, and yes. And I'm like you, Tom, I look back now and I think, yeah, I was on the road to death. I'm injecting things in my arm. I don't even know what they are. I'm not checking them out. Thank goodness the fentanyl thing wasn't going on at the time. It'd probably be dead. But I'm like, oh, what's that? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Who does that? People that.
There's many people that do that.
Yeah. And you have, people say, well, they're not in their right mind. Exactly.
No, you're right.
You're right.
Yeah.
So is that a low bottom? Some would say, but then I've heard stories of people that went way lower than I ever did, way lower, and did things and certain kind of crimes that are almost unspeakable, and they recovered and they're living a glorious life today, serving God and helping others. But they hit bottoms that I hadn't even imagined yet.
Right. So that's like in the definition I read that says it's relative. Like you
Yeah.
say it's low, then it's low. And someone else might have done that for years, what you did. So it was a longer duration and that was their low. But
Right.
I don't know if there's a really fine line of where low stops and high is,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Well, if
That
you think about it, and then I'll let you tell about yours, Alicia, right? The bottom, there's nowhere else you can go. So the bottom is the key. So when you decide you're at a bottom, it would be low, right? I mean, it would just be the bottom. Why does it have
Well,
to be high or low?
I guess the bottom would be death, right?
Yeah.
That's the underbottom.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, now we're going philosophical too. Is the bottom death? So then you could say, how close were you to death? Then high and low is
Then
more
it's
measurable
different.
now.
Oh,
Now
that's
it's measurable,
the point.
right?
Yeah.
If bottom is death, what is bottom? Somebody write in and tell us what bottom.
Right.
But go ahead,
But
Alicia. What happened to
if-
you?
Well, let me say one more thing on that. Because
yeah.
if we were, and I think, Tom, you were, but I don't remember, you can correct me, and I wanted to die. I wanted to commit suicide. So that is a bottom, because I wanted to die. Right? But I was high bottom, I believe. So with alcohol, I stopped, and I went to a few meetings, and I was like a blackout drunk, but it was kind of like a weekend thing. I was working full time. I had a son. I was going to school full time, so I was functioning. But I never had a DUI. I got in a few little accidents, but nothing big. And so I just decided to stop. And it was more of like you'll go, well, duh. It was more of I could do this grit discipline thing. Watch me stop kind of thing. So I stopped, but I still had eating disorders. So I was an addiction transfer, 100%. I kept that for another 25 years.
So the
And then
symptoms changed, but the addiction was still there. Yeah.
Totally, yeah. So it was not like a big deal because I just went from alcohol to the food and then starving. And
You
so
hit a
I
ledge.
think,
You had some
Yeah.
ledging on your.
yeah.
Well, you got the
So-
token. I'm going to look up bottom, see if there's something about bottom, a definition that helps.
Okay. So I definitely think I was high bottom. And then with food, emotionally and mentally, I still think I was high bottom. maybe if I was anorexic and dying in the hospital, that would be a low bottom, but I didn't get to that point. Sadly, I was envious of those people because I felt they had more discipline and self-control than I did. And I was jealous of all the anorexic people. But
Oh, wow.
yes. And then
Tell her.
exercise, same thing. And that was, I mean, alcohol was 31 years ago, but the food, I'm coming up at 7 years in October. So not that long. I'm still a little crazy.
See, and it's not, here's the subjective part. You say not that long, but for somebody else, they're going, "Oh my gosh, that's an eternity." 7 years.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It doesn't feel that long to me.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Did you find something, Tom?
Well, I'm trying to get it to tell me. It's talking about a rock bottom being a personal thing, subjective, unique, and individual, characterized by a complete loss over one's life, feelings of despair and hopelessness, a realization that the consequences of addiction are unbearable. But does that actually mean that you're about to die? Well, it doesn't say that. So now it says not necessarily a death point. Does rock bottom in addiction need to be a death point? The concept of rock bottom addiction is often misunderstood as not necessarily a death point. It is a point where individuals feel their lives are at their lowest, triggered by various life-altering events. It's not a requirement for recovery. Early intervention and support are crucial for those struggling with addiction. Waiting for a rock bottom can delay recovery and lead to more severe consequences. Like that's what you were saying, Monty.
Yeah.
Does it have to be this rock bottom? It doesn't
No.
have to be.
I have one. This is AI, of course. The lowest part or the lowest position of something. It can also refer to the underside or the ground under a body of water. So that's pretty low, right? I mean, the depths of the ocean. But yeah, I agree. It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be that way. We hear it all the time. Somebody passes away, and a parent loses a child, and you hear them say, "It didn't have to be that way," and they're right. It didn't.
Yeah. This says, what matters is not how far someone falls, but when they become ready to admit the problem and accept help. But if both reach the same internal realization, I can't go on like this, they've both hit a bottom. So in recovery programs, the emphasis shifts from how bad was it to are you willing to do something about it? I like that.
I do too, because okay, all right, stop the war stories. Let's get well.
Yeah.
Because there are people, I know people today that still love to brag about their character defects and their active addiction and alcoholism. They like to brag about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, have you recovered? Oh, no. I'll always be recovering. I believe you. I really do.
Yeah.
But I think if it's done even if it's done in the wrong way, I think it's good for people to hear in a crowd of the high bottom and the low bottom so they can kind of identify with stuff and see that they don't have to hit rock bottom to stop. They could be a high bottom like me. It could be food. It doesn't have to be alcohol. So I think that's important for people to kind of find themselves and not say, well, I haven't been homeless, so I'm just going to keep drinking. Must not be an alcoholic. Right? And maybe I wasn't. I mean, by whatever that definition was, maybe I wasn't an alcoholic. I was just using it as a crutch and a way to party. I don't know. Whatever. Doesn't matter.
Don't you think that well-meaning people, it doesn't matter. Don't you think that well-meaning people, much of the time when it comes to these definitions or the language that those of us in the recovery community use, I mean, every community has its own language, right? Christians have their own, Muslims have their own, Hebrews, everybody does. If you're in AA, it's very similar to some people in NA, but there are definitely some distinctions. Well, the average Joe has his too. And I think a lot of it, when it comes to trying to understand anything, they will simply parrot what they've heard from the people that are in it. So they only know what they know. So people, when they say, well, my cousin Frank, he just needs to hit his bottom before he'll get help. It's like, do you really know what you're saying? They don't really. They're just, they've heard it. You know, maybe they watched too many Dr. Phil episodes. Who knows? But, sorry, Dr. Phil.
I think I've said that before, sadly. I think I've said, well, they haven't hit their bottom yet.
And that may be true, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, and then I recently I heard somebody talking about their I think it's their son, and they're like, they just don't want to get well. And I'm like, I wonder if I could make that judgment call, because if you're powerless and you're in your powerlessness, you may want to get well more than anything, and you can't. What if you can't?
Well, that's the powerlessness.
That's the powerlessness. So that speaks to the disease and the whole thing there, you know.
Yeah, it got me. I couldn't stop. That's what got me to surrender. I mean,
yes.
I mean, we're masking. I mean, the trajectory of my life that year, if I stepped outside, I would have said, yeah, I'm going nowhere fast. This isn't okay. This is no future. This is nothing. And I can't stop. Now, whether I wanted to or not, I don't know that I played into it. I couldn't.
Right.
And when you don't see the other side, we talk about this at retreats, your whole perspective is the side you've been on. So it's hard to even, especially when you're so deep into it, to even consider another side that you have no experience with, no real experience. It's a dilemma. It's a tough place. So I don't know if I would have said, yeah, I want to quit one of these days. You might have kid around, you know, with some of the guys. Got to go, you know, I want to get out of this one of these days. But,
yeah, we would sit, me and my buddy we'd be sitting at the bar. We'd go into like a Shakey's Pizza or Straw Hat Pizza in the morning at 11 when they opened up, and drink beer all day watching Laurel and Hardy movies, and we wouldn't walk out till it was dark outside. And that whole time, you know what we're talking about?
Quitting.
Someday we need to find a good woman and we'll straighten up.
right. You know,
That was our whole conversation.
what I did want, guys, I think about it, is once I went in, remember, we see this with addicts at retreats. They don't think it can work because they don't think, you know, the year they have to take, they have to stay in this rehab. So they just tell you, this can't work. And then we say, well, if it could work in a weekend, wouldn't you want to try it? Oh, that changes the way they look. I did want what the people had that came and talked to me. When they told me their story, and they said, we were like you, and now I'm like this. I said, well, I do want that. I do. If that was possible, I want that. So that I did say. I did want what they had.
Interesting.
And that motivated me. And then I went, because I said, well, what'd you do? And it went about like that.
Yeah.
And once it started working and you do start to see the other side, then it changes.
See, and I think there's the dilemma, because I'm thinking back when I showed up at my friend's house up in Milwaukee. Did I want what other people had that were functioning and doing well in life? Yeah, I think I wanted both. I wanted my cake and eat it too. I wanted to keep using because I liked it. But I didn't want to keep using because I hated it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's such a conundrum, you know. And I think here's the thing about intervention. If you're out there in active addiction, you will be intervened on one way or another. It will happen either by Johnny Law, the judge, the little woman, or the coroner. But it'll happen. Mark my words. You're not going to get away with it.
Yeah.
Nobody ever does.
Right. when it comes to food, though, it's a little more complicated
I can
because
imagine.
everybody's eating the garbage and everybody's overweight, and so everybody thinks it's normal. And it's easy to hide, you guys. You know, I could have food there and just kind of push it around. Nobody's looking at my food like I'm looking at your food. Nobody knows. And then you can just throw it up or exercise all day long. Or, I mean, I think it's way easier to hide because everybody's eating and everybody's exercising and trying to be
It's
healthy.
legal.
And yeah.
Yeah.
And like you said, how you still wanted to do it, but you knew you shouldn't, or however you said it with
Yeah.
the food. I mean, I did that. I mean, it's been almost 7 years and I've fasted, which for someone with eating disorders is not the safest thing to do, but it's fasting. And then intermittent fasting or all the different stuff. And it's a little crazy.
So did you ever, and I'm going to tell myself, and I think I may have shared this with you before. I remember in high school getting up in the middle of the night and sneaking into the kitchen and eating like leftover mac and cheese, you know, Kraft,
Anything. Eat it all.
and
All
eating
of
it really fast
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I didn't want to get caught,
Yep.
you know,
And then I would starve because I was so shameful. I'd starve for 10 days
I just
and
kept eating.
exercise. And then I would be mortified and hungry. And then I would eat again. And I did that, you guys, for 33 years.
I don't think I ever woke up in my whole life and had a midnight snack. Woke up and ate.
Really?
I don't think I've ever done that. I
Oh, you haven't lived.
drink
That's-
water and stuff. I remember, and I think about it. I've never woken up and eaten.
Have you ever
Then
woke
you're
up in the
not
middle
a
of the
food
night
addict.
and started exercising?
No, but drink water,
Maybe.
fluid. I mean, hangovers. I remember drinking, a half a bottle of Pepsi or Coke, to try to ward off the dry. But
I crack
Woke
up
up
when I
and
watch
exercise.
these movies where people get sloshed, and
Mm-hmm.
the buddy says, "Here, drink this. This'll cure your hangover," and it's got raw eggs in it and some sort
Yeah.
of stuff. And I'm just going, "Ah, you idiot!" The only cure for that hangover is not to do the thing you did the night before, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I think of, here's the thing: if I believe I'm going to get away with it, I'm going to do it again.
I will agree with you on one thing, Monty, of which people won't. We may get hit both on is if I'd
Good.
had more money and there weren't consequences, I probably wouldn't have stopped as soon either.
Right.
I think totally.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I liked it, and I didn't. It was costing too much, and I was out of control when it comes to everything in life that wasn't working. But if life was working, I would maybe, life. And if I had a bunch of money, you would draw a line to say, well, life is working. I have enough money. I can pay my bills. I'm not unmanageable because I can pay my way out of things. Even if you were, it would have lengthened it, but it might have been a death sentence to do that because that's when people die too. I mean, all these rock stars and stars because they keep going because they
Yeah.
can,
Yeah.
and then they overdose and die. I mean, this is a story we hear.
All the time.
But I don't know. And I've been often to say there was some fun. Like all through high school and all this partying, I look back and as much as I can say it was leading to something bad, I don't have these horrible memories of this disastrous, drinking
totally.
career that, a bunch of it when you're in it and the party, it's fun.
Exactly.
I mean,
and I don't
it
think
is.
we need to pretend like, oh no,
Yeah.
it's so bad. It was
I mean-
actually really fun.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
And so-
there came a part in my active addiction that it wasn't fun anymore, but it felt good. If that makes any sense.
Yeah,
But
I mean, we'd go. If I was up all night, drunk, and then we ran out of liquor, and we're waiting for the bar that opens at 7 in the morning because there was one on a Sunday, and trying to get there because we just had to have alcohol at that point, so high, on Coke that you just that you had to have a beer. That wasn't fun.
yeah,
That wasn't fun. So, yeah. And I never had a blackout. Like, I drank a lot, but I never, blacked out and lost a whole block of time.
You
So I
didn't-
don't know what that is in
Well,
life.
maybe you did. You just don't know.
Well,
No, probably
Yeah,
not.
right.
Lots of people have don't experience blackout.
well, what did we figure out today? Did we figure out that high or low bottom mean anything? I mean, does it mean anything to your recovery? I mean, let's go there for a minute. Does it?
Yeah.
Are you more likely to stay recovered or have a more robust recovery, whether you had a high or a low traditional bottom? What's your experience, Monty? Do you know some people that are both? And
Yeah,
is there any difference?
I know folks that they got a warning. The cop told them, poured out their booze and told them to drive home, and that was it, and they were done.
Isn't
Said,
there?
that's it. I'm done. I'm going. And they went to an AA meeting, so I think I may have a problem. I got pulled over, and they never drank again. And they did their step work and that whole 9 yards. And I know people that it's one guy right now. He's very, very close to our family. He's in prison in Michigan, MIS, Michigan, right? In Michigan, and he has been cornered and knifed and beat up and all sorts of things for doing nothing in jail. He's not doing anything wrong in jail. He's keeping his nose clean. But he burned a guy's house down because he was jealous the guy talked to his girlfriend, all in his active addiction. He just blew his house up.
Whoa.
And he's staying clean and sober in prison doing his step work. There's two drastic differences.
I think it just comes down, if you're done, you're done.
Isn't there? I thought I read something. I don't know if in the big book. I'm searching it right now because I thought somewhere I read this reference to the most surrendered. Like there's a level of surrendering. I thought I read it's either a quote from a devotional book or a self-help book where they delineated levels of surrender. It said, the most surrendered got the most. And would a low bottom, if we're going to go with that premise, would a low bottom create a more surrendered person? Would you be more afraid of consequences from a low because you know where it could go and where it was than a high? And would that drive recovery to be deeper? I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
you know what? If you're like the guy who got pulled over and he never drank again, some would say, well, he's probably not an alcoholic. I don't know that.
No.
He may not be, but alcoholism isn't measured. But you don't determine whether you're an alcoholic by what happens when you drink, but what's your relationship with alcohol when you don't drink? Do you have an obsession towards it and that kind of thing? But because anybody can drink too much and want more, and not be an alcoholic. But this idea of am I more surrendered if my bottom is really low versus if my bottom's high? Again, it goes back to it being subjective, right? I mean, somebody's going to consider their what we would consider a high bottom very low for them, and they completely surrender. I don't know. I think when I may be wrong here, but if you're really going in the direction of an extremely low bottom, I mean horrible consequences, your brain chemistry is probably so messed up that you don't even realize what's happening anyway. I mean, it's just really going south. And it's going to take an intervention from up on high, from the Almighty, to even turn you around. I mean, that's the only explanation, I think, why I ended up at my friend's house was providence, was the hand of God. The guy lived 2 blocks from the phone booth I called him in for help, and I didn't even know where he lived. So,
well, that lends to being really a factual kind of a scientific, distinction between low and high, in that a low bottom, as we call it, definitely generally consists of greater physical consequences.
yeah.
More brain damage, potentially wet brain, and this and that. And that would become harder to come out of or take longer than someone who didn't suffer the same internal, damage that you could. So that in that way, there would be a difference in. So I don't know what damage I did going to the level I did. 40 years of drinking, sloshing my brain in alcohol for 40 years. Alicia only did it for 10 or 5 or whatever is,
9.
maybe she's crazier than the two of us. So, we can't tell. None of
Yes, I
that
am.
has anything to do with anything. And what,
Now I'm.
we're open cancer worms here, but I think, guys, people listening to this think the same. I think it's just worth us
Talking about,
mulling around it. Yeah, we don't have all the answers, but I think we have some. This is stuff that isn't talked about like this that I've heard. Actually,
Yeah. And I'm thinking maybe you guys would think that my eating disorder for 33 years was a low bottom because I
do. How much did
abandoned
you
my
exercise?
children.
Your obsessive behavior with exercise to the
I
detriment
know.
of your body and everything else, and giving
42
away your
hours.
kids.
I know. I abandoned my
Pretty low.
children.
That's pretty
basically.
low.
Yeah, that would be considered.
Exercising all day,
Yeah.
every day. Broke my arm. Still exercised. Dislocated
What?
my back. Still exercised.
You guys.
Maybe I did have a low bottom.
Wow.
Yeah, no, you did.
I don't know,
And you
but I
see-
mean, I wasn't like on deathbed.
And I also think, though, that and you can tell me if this is wrong, but I watched you, I've seen you since your turnaround, at least once you came to Believe, is I think because it got so much better, because you say it did, and God works through you, even though you don't think he does, but then we have a email listener who says that they were touched by something she said, but God doesn't work through her at all or never speaks to her. Anyway, you may say it shows you how low your bottom was as you get better and better. You realize, wow, I was in a really bad place, even if I thought, it was just eating, it was just exercise. It didn't, it wasn't shooting needles.
Yeah.
It wasn't that bad. But then as you get better, you go, whoa, but wait a minute. Right? Because I know as I get better, it does highlight the significance or the tension of being so bad as I got better.
Totally.
So,
Yeah, I looked at, I was, no time, no friends, exhausted, exercising, getting up at 4 a.m., teaching all day long, getting home, doing it again every day. That is some crazy. And I wasn't happy doing it either. It was miserable.
see, that's another thing. How much fun were you having doing that?
I wasn't.
I remember watching years ago, Moyers on Addiction. It was called. It was a documentary on brain chemistry, and it was interesting. They took the brain of an active addict, and at the time it was methamphetamine, and the brain. Oh no, I'm sorry. That was another study. An active alcoholic who was currently drinking, and a person who was a workaholic, but never drank a day in his life, right? And they did a brain scan on it, and you could barely tell the difference.
Wow. So
With the
addiction
damage
is
that was
addiction
being
is addiction.
done. You know what I'm saying? And so once again, lots of times we're talking about the outward manifestation of an inward condition, and the inward condition being the same, whether it's dysfunction around food, substances, behavioral addictions like pornography or whatever, that you put the brain scan side by side, you're going, I can barely tell the difference here, which speaks to, why we need this power so desperately, because we're not it, guys, and we need him.
Yeah.
And so my question for you guys is, in all this, because I'm thinking about our closing song because we got to wrap it up, but in all these things that we perceive as negative, our bottoms, is God at work? Is is some of the things that we perceive as being bad, is it really, maybe we don't know what's bad and what's good, right? God's at work in this stuff. you think that it is possible that even at our lowest, the Lord had everything in control and he knew exactly what he was doing?
Tom?
And then we're getting Calvinistic versus
Here we go.
Wesleyan, right?
Yeah.
Did he
Calvin
know, or did he know what he's doing, or did he know what would happen?
Right.
I think he knows
So you
what
have
would
choice.
happen. But we always had the choice. I think he knew what would happen. But it's one of those things.
Well, he certainly was with us.
You know, I mean, well, I would say for sure. But, yeah, that's
Interesting.
You know that part in the big book, it says we do not regret the past, nor do we wish to shut the door on it, for the purposes of helping other people.
Now, I have had this happen. I was speaking to someone on the phone just before here about somebody that I know who just hasn't had their eyes opened, hasn't had the veil lifted. And I guess as for Christians, guys, if you listen, the Bible says the people that are called hear him. So you can be not called, I guess, and blocked where it doesn't matter what you read. The Spirit doesn't touch you, I guess, if you read it that way until you are. And I'm making no theologic, statement here.
No,
I'm just saying.
I think that's true. Yeah.
When I was praying about this person why don't they get it? They just don't, the light just never goes on. But things aren't horrible. I got a clear, don't worry about him. That I got him. So in that case, that feeds into yours, Monty. All right. Don't worry about it. This is mine. Okay. Then I just have to keep going. So is there a plan, or do they just know? Does the God just know the time for when he'll call? And I think some are called and they just say, you still have a choice if you're called.
Well, I know somebody that knows now. John MacArthur knows. He does now.
Yeah,
he's with the
he's
Lord.
in heaven now. I would think.
It's going to be interesting. These are the things I think when the Bible talks about the great mysteries that are unknown to us. I think there's a lot of stuff we're not supposed to know right now, but what we are supposed to do is trust. And
it's certainly easier to go, right? Like lack of worry, just trust.
But we still need to do our part in carrying a message worth depth and weight for the addict and alcoholic who still suffer.
Well, that's what we have to do.
That's what we have to do.
What worked for us can work for you, and that's the message we can share, and we do.
Amen.
Wow.
That just wrapped. Yeah. Pen drop.
I gotta
All
drop
right.
it. I gotta take it off and drop it someday.
Our closing song is by a lady with an interesting name. Her name is Laura Story. Ever heard of her?
No.
She has a song called Blessings, and this is the acoustic version. I like finding acoustic versions of it's just more real to me. And it asks a question that I think we all need to consider. So listen carefully to this. I think it'll bless your heart. Here's Laura Story.
Hey, this is Laura Story, and this is my song, Blessings. We pray for blessings. We pray for peace. Comfort for family. Protection while we sleep. We pray for healing. For prosperity. We pray for your mighty hand to ease our suffering. And all the while, you hear each spoken need. Yet love is way too much to give us lesser things. 'Cause what if your blessings come through raindrops? What if your healing comes through tears? And what if 1,000 sleepless nights are what it takes to know you're near? And what if trials of this life not feel you near, and we doubt your goodness, and we doubt your love, as if every promise from your word is not enough. And all the while you hear each desperate plea, and long that we'd have faith to believe. 'Cause what if your blessings come through raindrops? What if your healing comes through tears? And what if 1,000 sleepless nights are what it takes to know you're near? And what if trials of this life are your mercies in disguise? When friends betray us, when darkness seems to win, we know the pain reminds this heart that this is not our home. It's not our home. What if your blessings come through raindrops? What if your healing comes through tears? And what if 1,000 sleepless nights are what it takes to know you're near? And what if my greatest disappointments or the achings of this life is the revealing of a greater thirst this world can't satisfy? And what if trials of this life, the rain, the storms, the hardest nights, are your mercies in disguise?
Well, whether high or low, hitting bottom, though brutal and disorienting, can be one of life's most profound turning points. It strips away illusions, distractions, and the noise that once masked deeper truths. When everything falls apart, we're forced to confront what truly matters, often discovering strength, resilience, and clarity we didn't know we had. Pain becomes a teacher, not a punishment. It pushes us to rebuild from a place of authenticity rather than obligation or fear. In that raw space, we begin to ask better questions. Who am I without the titles, the expectations, the masks? What do I want to create from this point forward? The blessing of rock bottom is that it's solid ground. There's nowhere lower to fall, which paradoxically offers a strange kind of safety. From that place, every step forward is progress. It's a reset button disguised as a breakdown. People often emerge from their lowest points with deeper empathy, sharper purpose, and a renewed sense of gratitude. The pain doesn't vanish, but what it does is it transforms. It becomes fuel, and in time, what once felt like the end reveals itself as the beginning of something far more meaningful. It's something to think about.
Came to Believe Recovery strives to create and promote opportunities for life-changing spiritual experiences for individuals and families suffering from all forms of addiction. For more information, help, and support, visit cametobelieverecovery.org. I'd like to thank you for allowing me to be your host on this episode of the Came to Believe Recovery podcast. And I would encourage you to like, bookmark, and subscribe to this show. When you do, you will join the Take 12 Recovery Radio family and will be notified of all of our recovery-focused shows throughout the week. Until our next broadcast, when we provide the essential spiritual tools needed to thrive by sharing our experience, our strength, and our hope through our stories of how we came to believe.
This has been a production of Take 12 Recovery Radio.
Yeah, kitty, kitty, kitty. Meow.
Woof, woof.
This has been a Chicken and a Pig production.